Hey y'all, Andrew Reed, Mossy Creek Mushrooms, and today I want to talk to you about the Mossy Creek Medley. It's our new grain spawn formula. We've been trialing it for quite some time, but I wanted to go over how we could teach you guys how to make it. It's the best grain spawn formula that I have been able to find to date. We have tested it. We've gotten several customers who have just fallen in love with it. It has been, as I said, the best grain spawn mix I've been able to find. So, with that, a couple of quick announcements. Number one, custom grain spawn is now cheaper and ships faster off of the Mossy Creek Mushrooms website. So please go check that out. Our lead times are drastically reduced. No more 6 to 8 weeks of waiting on spawn. Spawn is now coming out much, much quicker because it is made the day you order it, or the next business day if you order on the weekend or after hours. This said, that's really allowing us to push grain spawn out very quickly. That combination of grain spawn and liquid culture. But even more exciting, we have a bulk spawn program now. If you are looking for a way to get lots of spawn for your operation, you want to use the Mossy Creek Mushrooms genetics, you can get the Mossy Creek Mushrooms genetics on the Mossy Creek Medley for $25 a bag as of right now. And it's a 4-bag minimum. Bulk spawn program is so that you can get a lot of spawn very quickly, very cheaply. What we're trying to do with this, we're in the beginning stages. I'm sure there are going to be a little bit of mishaps because every time I announce something, you guys order way more of it than I'm expecting. We've been stocking up, trying to make sure that we're ready to announce this. But the time is coming. We're ready to announce this. Our bulk spawn program is 4 strains that are a seasonal mix, right? It's a seasonal selection of what we are growing right now in this season, so you can have a really good bet that it's going to grow well for you at this time period. It's what we're packing right now. Now, I think for the next 3 months, we have Mother of Pearl, King Blue, excuse me, I think we have Mother of Pearl, King Blue, Elm Z, and could be Pathfinder Oyster. I'll need to double check to make sure that is the 4th one. But it's on the website. You should totally check it out. You can order the cases in one of 2 ways. You can order 4 bags in a case that are all the same spawn type. So 4 bags of King Blue, 4 bags of Mother of Pearl, whatever. And shipping is included in that price. Or you can order a bag with 1 of each. Gold Oyster. It's not Pathfinder, it's gold. I just remembered. That said, this is a great opportunity to have spawn to you faster, where you don't have to make it yourself. You don't even need a lab anymore. If you're just packing fruiting blocks, feel free to order this stuff, and we will have it out to you quickly. And, like I said, cheaply. $25 a bag, shipping included, 4-bag minimum, with Mossy Creek genetics in it. It's fantastic. Now, for those of you who want to know what the Mossy Creek Medley is, and want to know how to make it yourself, because you're the DIYer type, it's really simple. So we're still soaking our grain spawn like we normally do. You can go check out our previous grain spawn video. It was about how we soak our grain spawn, and our grain spawn at that time was only oats with a little bit of sawdust, straw dust, or soy hull dust thrown into there. Just a little bit of your fruiting material, your fruiting substrates. So with our grains, so the grain spawn mix, beyond being just the regular soak like we've got, this is soap, spit in a bucket, that whole thing. It's the exact same way. Only now, instead of just using oats and a little bit of your fruiting substrates, dust in there to buffer the moisture, give it a little bit extra food and smaller inoculation points, now you're going with 2 parts oats, 2 parts milo, and 1 part whole corn. Whole kernel corn. Just feed corn. Doesn't need to be anything super clean. Doesn't need to be triple cleaned oats. In fact, I like the fact when there's dust in my I don't understand why people clean the dust out of their spawn. It's just another inoculation point. But that said, and then you just use the soak method. Drain it, strain it, and put it in a bag with a few pellets in there to buffer the moisture. and you're pretty much good to go. But let me explain to you why I've picked the materials that we have, the media, the substrates that we have. So you guys know my thoughts on oats. I love oats. You can beat oats; they don't crack. You can put them on under immense heat, pressure; they don't crack. You can over soak them; they don't burst. They are so easily, like, they take a beating. They just take a beating, and they're tough. But beyond that, they are the most nutritious grain that I can find for mushrooms, period. They have the highest nitrogen, thereby the highest protein, and I have never seen any sort of grain spawn leap off of any other grain the way I have seen grain, mycelium leap off of oats. I think it's just that higher level of nutrition gives it a better leaping off ability. It just gives it the ability to really just leap off. I mean, oftentimes when we're spawning with the oats you can see growth the very next day. And I really like that. I really like that a lot. Now the Milo has gone as a compromise for the millet lovers, including myself. I don't like millet. I don't like working with millet. I think it's way too expensive. Milo is way cheaper. Milo is grown around here where I live, so it's a lot easier to get a hold of. Actually, though, I get my Milo from Seth Fisher from Mushroom Media Online. He ships it in by the pallet. And it's a white Milo. I do miss the red Milo. The red Milo is what I used to get local, and that was just for the color. So, but Milo is a nutritious grain, a little bit bigger than millet, but it provides lots of little teeny tiny inoculation points, just like millet would. And it's a little thicker, so I feel like, you ever notice how sometimes when you spawn fruiting substrate with millet, and like you'll see a bunch of millet grains in the bag that never do anything, nothing leaps off of them, nothing ever happens. I feel like I see that with millet more than I would like. Every time I've ever worked with millet, I see that. But Milo, I don't really see that very often, and I think it's literally just the fact that it's a thicker grain. The mycelium can live inside of it a little easier, and it's got a little bit more nutrition to stay in there. So that's why I like that. Gives it lots of little inoculation points. And then the corn, the whole kernel corn, is big, fat, dense, soaks up a lot of water, becomes very heavy. It penetrates very deeply into the sub. When we are putting grain spawn in and then shaking it in, the corn just kind of settles through the substrate. It's amazing to watch. The corn will just like fall through the substrate when everything else you're trying to work it in. So that corn kind of hits these spots and gives a large inoculation point, makes a big circle, with mycelium as it's coming off. Typically what you'll see with the Mossy Creek Medley when you're working with it is that the mycelium will leap off the oats first, and you'll kind of see it and you'll be like, okay, that's interesting, that's good, there's some growth, and then bam, bag's grown in. And a large portion of that is the lots of little inoculation points of the Milo mixed in with a lot of the inoculation points of the straw dust and the soybean hull dust. Milo's got me thinking of sorghum. Sorghum is what it's called when it's grown for the sugary liquid in the sap, and Milo is what that sorghum plant, is called when it is grown for the grain. But the soy hull dust and the straw dust, or sawdust if you're working on there, is in there to be a moisture buffer, but also to add some of the benefits of sawdust spawn. Sawdust spawn has a lot of benefits in that it's got just tons and tons of little inoculation points. And with sawdust spawn, you'll typically see a very similar effect to what you see with our spawn, which is, I see a little bit of growth, and then bam, it's grown in. Right? That is often the case with sawdust spawn, and it's one of the pleasures of working with sawdust spawn. But sawdust spawn doesn't really add any oomph to the substrate as much, I feel like, as a real grain spawn does. And I feel like using a real grain spawn over sawdust spawn is superior when you're working with supplemented substrates. That said, that's really it. You do the same thing. So we'll pour our oats into a sterilite bin, our soaking tub, which has a valve on it so that we can drain it. We'll pour our 2 parts Milo in and our 1 part corn, and then we just fill the whole thing up with water, the soaking tub up with water, good 4 or 5 inches or so in there, and then we do the spit in the bucket, which I know everyone has been a big fan of for some reason, but I'm really glad you guys enjoy that. It really works. It helps the fermentation process start. It breaks down those outer layers a little bit of the grain, and gives a little extra nutrition when you got a bunch of dead yeast bodies in there, right? So, but that's how we treat it, and then you drain it, put some pellets in your bag, scoop your grain spawn in there, and then cook it and use it like you normally would, and that's it. That's the Mossy Creek Medley. All it is just the recipe. I am sure people have created a recipe very similar to it. This is just our little take on it. You can swap grains out and try whatever mixes you like. If this is something you don't like, you can swap the corn out for, well, I don't know, but you can swap the oats out for wheat or rye very easily. You can swap the milo out for millet or amaranth even. You can swap the corn out for, I don't know what, there's just not something that's got a large kernel size that corn does. Corn does not normally make a good spawn on its own. You can do it with popcorn spawn, but a lot of corn is just too sugary, and not really nutritious enough to support really good growth. So that is something that I would really consider leaving in. Rather than, maybe you might be able to find the kernel big enough to do something else with. But other than that, guys, I just wanted to really get out here and announce our new spawn program, because people have been hounding me for years. And I don't mean to sound ungrateful. I've just now finally gotten to the point where I can support a large grain spawn op. So now that we have the grain spawn, the capacity to produce, I am lowering my prices. Our custom grain spawn is now, it's right there alongside North Spores and Cost. And if you want the bulk spawn, knock another $5 off that per bag. So, I'm just so stoked about that. I'm stoked about this Mossy Creek Medley. I like the sign that Samantha made for me. I really wish, maybe I can just take a picture of that and use that as a thumbnail, because that's just so pretty. But, check the merch page out. Samantha is adding stuff regularly on the merch page on mossykreekmushrooms.com. And, of course, guys, please join us for the Mushroom Cast on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 3:30 here on the channel, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I don't have anything else for you guys. Oh, keep spawning culture, y'all.
어떡한데? 어떡해?